Welcome to Creator Upload, your creator economy podcast. I'm Lauren Schnipper.
And I'm Joshua Cohen. Lauren.
Yes.
You got out of the house this week.
Got out of the house, went to the Slow Ventures Creator CEO event, hosted by Billy Parks and Megan Lightcamp. It was really, really good. Saw all the people, was schmoozing, was hanging out, had a few interesting panels. One of the ones that I went to that I thought was really cool. We'll take a step back. We've had Slow on before, Billy and Megan, and they talk about how their investment thesis in creators is really around creators that sort of are building businesses off platform, and they use content to kind of, blow it up. So it's really not necessarily content first businesses. So we had like Jonathan Katz on, who's like the carpenter tool guy, who they invested in, which is really cool. So they had this one woman. I don't think they've actually invested in her yet. She has a company called Five Marys Meat or something like that. And it's because she and her 4 daughters are all named Mary. True story. Shout out to Miles from Rare Days, who was sitting next to me. And I asked him I was like, I dare you to ask a question about the names. And he did. And it turns out they go by a lot of nicknames. So thank you. But they have a cattle ranch, and they are not the mother, Mary, has no experience with that. The husband, the father, had some experience in it, but just talked about how they use content to, talk to their audience. And a lot of people are so obviously cattle ranch curious. So how are these people that left their fancy life in sort of San Francisco to go do this, and talking about all the different ways in which they use the cow and how they lean into different businesses. It was, I don't know, it was kind of fascinating. It was just I was feeling is this my baby boom moment? Diane Keaton movie from the 80s or 90s where she leaves and starts a strawberry jam company after leaving the corporate world. I don't know. Are we doing this? I don't know.
I can see you doing that, and then just going and bathing in beef tallow.
Yeah. So beef tallow, I didn't know anything about tallow, is a whole thing. And at one point she's like, some people are saying it's better than Botox. And I was like, she's listening now. It's say what? Excuse me? And so, yeah, she was talking about how the tallow, I guess, is the fat. It's part of the fat on the meat, and they render it a certain way. And she started doing it in her kitchen, and now they have I think they have an industrial kitchen that they do this in. I mean, really interesting how this woman was really inspiring, because she's one of these people that just has an idea, executes it, it goes well, she leans into it. If it doesn't, she pivots. She's just very I in a good way, not emotional about things. She's just I'm very motivated by money. I'm very motivated by a challenge. Tell me I can't do something and I will do it. It's very cool.
Lauren, 2 things worth mentioning here. One, Slow Ventures. You said that we've had them on the show before. They are investing upwards of $60 million into the creator economy on not necessarily Mary, but people like Mary that are in these different niches that they think can get mass appeal.
Yeah. For their products, when they diversifying their revenue is the whole thing.
Correct. It's not for creators that are going to be entertainment personalities and go on and create more content.
No.
It's for creators who are using all these different types of distribution mechanisms and content to get their products in the hands of more and more people in their niches.
Yes. And yes.
And then second thing,
sure,
I think is worth mentioning here is, you know what Mary's last name is?
I wrote it down. Starts with
Heffernan.
Yeah.
Heffernan.
Yeah.
Do you know about nominative determinism?
Well, a heifer is you're going to go because heifer is something about a cow.
Exactly. A heifer is a young female cow.
Yeah.
That has not yet had her first calf. But I'm obsessed with this idea of nominative determinism, where your name determines or has an outsized impact on your career choice or your personality or what you do in life. And this is another prime example. This is amazing.
Fascinating. Look at you going deep. That's what we do here on Crave. We go layers deep here. There was another panel that was very interesting that I was sort of more about newer creators. So this guy, Warner Bailey, was on it, and he has a meme account called Agents versus Assistants, which is hilarious, but very talk about niche. It's very for young agents in the sort of in the entertainment industry, and just talking about talking a lot of shit, frankly. And he was doing this for years anonymously, and he was talking about the decision to sort of go more publicly sort of facing, and now he's building a business around it. It was very difficult for him to go public because he's not necessarily looking to be, the face of anything, but doing that has really exponentially grown the business. And it's really targeting these sort of young, early career stage kind of folks. He's targeting college kids that want to get in the entertainment industry. Really, really funny, a really interesting guy. And then this one other woman was on it, Jess Rona Grooming. So she's a comedian that started a dog grooming business and started posting these photos of really sappy music and like putting a hairdryer against like a dog, and it was like really slow-mo, and it was really funny, and it blew up. She has a brick and mortar store, and now she's starting her own product line called Schmoop for dogs. And because she was just going, there's like a real need for this in the space, again using content, and she's like, all I really want to do is be funny, but people want me to do dogs, so I'm trying to figure out how to like do both. So that was really
Are
interesting.
we entering a world where just like everyone's new favorite creator is a different version of the ShamWow guy? That's where we're headed, right?
I mean, possibly. Well, the last one was a woman. I think she goes by. She's a dentist. I can't remember her name, and she. I mean, this is what kills me. She like noticed there's a gap in the market, an opportunity for like premium dental products, right? Like take me for example. By the way, I do use a fancy toothpaste, so there are some. It's French, obviously, but like we have the front nice creams and this and that, but then you go to the toothpaste aisle and it's like nothing's been disrupted there in like a million years. It's like basically Crest and that's it. So she felt an opportunity there. Sometimes I have these moments where I'm like, does it need to be disrupted? Like, do we need that? I don't know. Maybe we do. So she is doing that. So I love what Slow is doing, and I love this conference because I'm obsessed with sort of diversifying sort of revenue and creators. And we're going to talk about this a bit in our interview today. We have the co-founders of Fixated, Zach Katz and Jason Wilhelm, and just we talk about how at one point, all these big companies are bringing in, creators to come and like, be a part of their business because like Gap we didn't talk about this in the interview, but like Gap just hired a head of content. Like this is all one of the same. Like everybody kind of has to be a content creator if you're going to sell anything these days. And so that's ultimately what I think Slow is kind of really honed in on and what that conference was about. So it was really great. Congrats to Billy Parks, especially, who just nails it. I love that dude. He's just great. He's a gentle giant.
It's fantastic.
Gentle giant, that one. Before we get to our interview, we want to talk about Netflix a bit. They just came out with their earnings this week. Josh, you want to walk us through it?
Yeah, Lauren. So Netflix announced its Q4 earnings, which they beat analysts' expectations. They had $12.05 billion in revenue versus an estimated $11.96 billion. It also reported reaching 325 million paid global subscribers, bringing it up from 302 million in Q4 2024. It said K-pop Demon Hunters was obviously the most watched content it's ever produced. And while Wall Street may have been happy with those numbers, the stock went down because Netflix's guidance said they're going to invest a lot into programming. Part of that is their offer to buy Warner Bros. Discovery, which they're putting up $82.7 billion in cash now to compete with Paramount Skydance's own offer. And a lot of it also has to do with YouTube. So this is what Ted Sarandos, Netflix's co-CEO, said on the earnings call. When we look at our share of TV time, the benchmark isn't just other streamers anymore. YouTube is TV. We are competing with them for advertising dollars and for the most professional content in the world. We're moving into video podcasts and creator-adjacent formats because that's where the engagement is shifting. And so that's part of why they want to buy Warner Bros. Discovery too, is because they need more and more content. YouTube, for all intents and purposes, has an unlimited supply of content. As long as it treats its creators well and provides meaningful revenue for its creators, which there's at no point in the near future indicates that it won't be doing those two things, it's basically going to have an unlimited supply of programming on its platform. Netflix, on the other hand, doesn't. It has to go out and hunt for and pay for new content upfront in order to get it on its platform. And so I just think that quote is especially telling because of where Netflix was even like 6 months ago. In Q2 2025, Ted Sarandos said this during the Netflix quarterly earnings call. He said, there's a difference between killing time and spending time. We're in the spending time business. YouTube has a massive footprint in killing time, snackable consumption. But as they move into the living room, we are meeting them with our premium slate. And before that, in Q3 2024, Ted Sarandos said, we don't see YouTube as a zero-sum competitor for content, but we certainly see them as a competitor for the first screen. When a user turns on their TV, we want Netflix to be the first app they click, not YouTube. If we take that back even further, the first time that anyone at Netflix mentioned YouTube or kind of mentioned YouTube was from Reed Hastings back in 2017. He said, we compete with and lose to Fortnite more than HBO. In fact, we compete with sleep. So you're looking at 9 years ago, YouTube wasn't even mentioned by Netflix. It wasn't even seen as a competitor or this upstart that they should be worried about. And then slowly, YouTube becomes this thing that they're paying attention to. And now it's this thing they're in outright competition with. That evolution is fascinating.
It's fascinating. I mean, the speed is really what's fascinating. The speed at which everything has changed. I mean, it's just listen. I think it's so important to have room for both, because I mean, I think that you can make the argument. Well, to take a step back, like, call it like 10 plus years ago, you and I were around when a lot of folks were sort of making the argument of like, there's Netflix that's like the premium, there's YouTube that's the UGC, and like you need this sort of in between middle layer. So there were a ton of SVODs that were sort of created, sort of most famously, I would say, is like the full screen one. There was also, why do I never remember the name of the one? Jason Killar's one.
Go 90.
Well, Go 90 was one, and then the one that gave all the money to the YouTubers. I guess maybe that wouldn't have been considered it because they were putting YouTube content on there. Anyway, moving on from that one, there were several that were in this middle layer. None of them succeeded because what kind of everybody realized is that, like, yes, I think on a high level that is true. Netflix Premium, YouTube more UGC, but really they meet in the middle because you've got Love Is Blind and things like that on Netflix, and then you've got like really amazing content. I don't know, just Joey Graceffa's series just came into my, into my brain. Like, just like really high quality content on YouTube. So you've got, both of them kind of meet in the middle as well. So you don't kind of need these other services, to sort of fill in the gap. And I think what even more though, I think we're always going to crave both, consumers are always going to crave both types of content. But there's also like a piece of this that is laziness and ease, and sometimes our brains are getting so used to shorter content that sometimes you just want to scroll some shorts every now and again and then go to bed before, instead of like committing to like watching a 30-minute or hour-long movie. And it's just so it's hard because they're not necessarily competing, and I think they're saying this, they're not necessarily competing on quality of content. It's just what people feel like doing with their time is kind of changing a little bit. And so that's a really heady thing as well to figure out how to sort of battle if you're Netflix. You know what I mean?
I think they are competing on quality content at a certain level, though. Like
at a certain level, for sure.
Netflix is going to have YouTube beat on prestige television and Stranger Things and things that cost tens of millions of dollars an episode to make and produce.
Yes.
For sure. But I'd say like minimum viable entry of something compelling to watch on YouTube, the threshold for that has dramatically increased over the years.
Yeah.
Because people have gotten so much better at being able to make stuff, and the technology and the hardware around making this type of stuff has gotten so much better with them that like the average vlog on YouTube now is orders of magnitude better than the average one that was on YouTube like 5 or 6 years ago. So I think this is a serious issue where we're finally, I think we maybe have said this in the past, but like there is really this like Netflix, YouTube world, and they're going to be duking it out as dominant entertainment platforms for culture and consumption moving forward.
All right, I want to get to our interview. It's really interesting. It gets spicy there for a minute. Your girl just pushed back a little bit. But I'm actually really excited about these guys. I think what they're doing is very, very interested. So very, very interesting. So we've got Zach Katz. He is the CEO and founding partner of Fixated. And we have Jason Wilhelm, the co-founder and president of Fixated. Let's get to it. Zach Katz, Jason Wilhelm, welcome to Creator Upload.
Thanks so much for having us, guys.
Yeah, appreciate you having us.
Yeah, no, this is really great. You guys have so much going on at Fixated. I just want to start like right away. I'm going to go to you, Zach. Why does the industry need another management company?
It doesn't.
Okay, we're done. We're good.
No, I mean, look, the reality is, coming from a very mature, very saturated industry called the music industry, where value has been shaped, reshaped, and frankly has hit a ceiling in progressing and evolving. When I saw what was going on in digital, I absolutely saw that the industry needed so many different things. The digital space needed so many different things. Compared to the 70-year-old music industry, this industry here is 15 years old. It over the past 3 years has completely graduated from, hey, we're influencers, easy come, easy go. Yep, we are technically in entertainment, but we're sitting at the little kids table and we know it. And maybe, just maybe one day, if we're good enough over here, the big kids table over there, Hollywood, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, will invite us to play with them. And over the past 3 years, that's completely changed. Digital has stolen the hearts, minds, eyeballs, dollars of the entire world. It has become the dominant force of entertainment. If anything, we can call it the new Hollywood versus the old Hollywood. I think people are going to start using that framing. So first of all, I saw that digital was the thing, and it was going to be the thing forever, number one. And number two, coming from an industry where value has been defined and redefined, like we said, I saw value gap upon value gap in digital. So does it necessarily need another quote unquote management company? No, but creators are finally up to bat in the big leagues. And ultimately, everyone that's frankly come before us is still representing the old version of creators that had different opportunities and different ambitions. So as the needs of creators have evolved to step into this bigger opportunity, companies like ours can come in and actually meet that evolved need with an evolved value prop.
I love that. So Jason, as a creator, I don't know if you call yourself a creator, former creator, how do you think the needs have evolved since even you were sort of pumping out content years ago?
I think the biggest thing is that, the industry has grown and evolved so much that, there's so many platforms now. Every single platform has a different algorithm, has different ways to be successful on them. And I think that, so many creators today, in order to be successful on all these platforms, they need a real team around them that actually can speak the language of all those platforms. And, for us, that's at a core of our business is, we have a content team that understands every single platform, that has been very successful in doing that before and being creators themselves in most cases. And so, I think that's one of the biggest changes between, 2011 when I first started, making YouTube videos, and that was basically the only thing, versus today, is that there's just so many platforms. They're all very different. There's new creators every single day that are popping up all over the place. Competition is at literally the highest it's ever been. And to be at the very, very top, you need a real strategy, a real roadmap, a real team around you to be able to execute on that. So I think that's one of the biggest differences between now and back in the day.
So talk to us about Eldridge giving you $50 million. How'd you convince them, and what is it for?
A lot of it was, they were talking to a lot of the traditional players and everything. And I think when we came to the table, showed them, the business that we were building, it was just so different than anything they've heard in the space up to this point. These guys have heard every pitch, since the beginning of this industry. And, our pitch was just very different. And I think that really resonated with them. And, one of the things that, Todd said in one of the meetings we had is, I love the dynamic between...
Todd is, just tell the kids who Todd is.
Todd Boehly. So he's the founder, CEO of Eldridge, chairman of Eldridge. So he, one of the things that he said, in one of our very first meetings was, hey, I love the dynamic between you and Zach, right? And that's very different than any of these other companies in the space, right? And so I think it was a combination of those. And I just think that, they're very smart people, and they know that digital is now, table stakes across the board with everything. And they wanted to bet on a horse in the race, and they chose us.
So Zach, what are you doing with the money? What's it for?
It's building, the value prop, that evolved value prop that we talked about, right? So the biggest differentiator between us and everyone else is the fact that we understand the value and the competitive nature of content. So again, and from time to time in this conversation, I'll kind of point back to the music industry. The entire music industry, right, is completely built around the belief that creators, meaning music artists, producers, songwriters, and their works are valuable and monetizable. That's why we have record labels. That's why we have music publishing companies, right? It's a music company will pull somebody out of Starbucks, right, who they believe is a talented singer-songwriter, give them money to quit their day job, give them hundreds of thousands of dollars to go into the studio with the best songwriters and producers. We'll put 50 people and another $1 million to go market that project, and then they'll put them on tour. And that's table stakes in the music industry, right? In the music industry, a manager actually needs to have one of two skill sets, and ideally both. Be able to guide their talent creatively, not write songs for them, but at the very least let them know who they could be, in terms of their musical identity, who they should be working with and collaborating with in order to make their best music. And number two, how to market that music at the highest level and how to orchestrate that marketing. When I came and took the job at FaZe Clan, and I was there as president and chief operating officer, I was shocked at the industry and how little the industry knew and was involved with the content. And when we look at the revenue pie for creators, 30% brand deals, 70% content, and the only thing that the industry was doing was brand deals. And the conversation went like this: nice to meet you. I'm your manager. I don't really understand anything that you do with your content. I don't understand long form. I don't understand short form. I don't understand this thing called clipping. You've been figuring that out with your friends forever. Keep figuring that out with your friends. And if you do, I'll get you a brand deal. So when I saw that coming from an industry where content is literally everything, and by the way, when you look at 10 different ways that a successful music artist makes money, brand deals doesn't even get onto that list of 10. Right.
Well, just to interrupt you for a second, because I've been in this industry. You said this has been around for 15 years. So Josh and I have been doing this since literally day one. So it's not the first time I've heard the music industry comparison, but I want to push back on it. And I've interrupted you, so maybe you're going to get to this. So forgive me. The music industry, to your point, is upwards of 70, 80 years old. So there are certain barriers to entry to getting into that business that don't exist, will never exist in the creator economy, right? Like, I was at a company that they were trying to make it so that we would sort of represent the collaborators, like the way as in music industry, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but there's certain songwriters that are tied up with labels, and unless you sign with that label or something, you really can't get access to that. That doesn't exist in this industry, right? Like, there's no barriers to entry. So like, how do you think about adding value around the content when people can just call whoever and do the content with whomever? Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world. And I love this question because it was asked of me 2 months ago from a very, very dear friend of mine that runs a music company. I was telling him excitedly how we're building this ecosystem, right? Where it's 360 talent representation, but as part of our relationship with them, we are also their production partner. And we have this incredible 25-person team of just the God squad of content across every single platform. And he's like, Zach, what do they need that for? This is an industry where creativity was democratized, to your point, Lauren, from day one. There was no entry point. There was no entry barriers. It's like, oh, pick up your phone right here and start creating. And it's just as, your future is just as good as your creativity, so to speak. And the answer goes like this. There's two types of music artists. Music artists who make a living, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year. God bless them. They don't have to work a day job. They get to do what they do for a living. And then there's artists that make 10, 20, 30, $40 million a year. The difference between those two classes of citizens is one primary thing. 3 to 5 songs that the entire world knows every single lyric to. They're called hits. And when you're looking at an industry called digital that is becoming as competitive as traditional music or Hollywood, what's going to separate you is hits. Now, for Jason and myself, we're not looking to come in and be a long tail solution. We want to work with guys and girls that are the most ambitious, that want to have their face on the Mount Rushmore of the space, that want to fully reach their potential and make 10, 20, 30, $40 million a year. And for those guys and girls, content is absolutely the biggest differentiator. So when we talk about Eldridge and what they've invested not into a talent representation business. They've invested into an ecosystem that has premium talent at the foundational level. And I'm talking about guys and girls that are wildly ambitious and whose magic show, so to speak, is totally different from everyone else's magic show. We have a full-on content studio with some of the brightest, youngest, and Jason can talk about this in a second because I think it's so important, minds in the business. And then over the past 18 months, we've built out this ecosystem, this virality engine with 25,000 micro creators who we can access at any given point to get billions of views per month. So now we're talking about a verticalized ecosystem and an entertainment company where you ultimately have the best talent, the best content, and the widest distribution you can possibly imagine. And so with that, we're building the gold standard digital entertainment company of the future. We're not a talent representation business. We're an entertainment company that works very, very closely with talent to meet today's needs.
I want to add something to that too, just around, this, because I've heard this happen. I've heard this from so many people, especially, people that have been in the industry for a long time on more of the corporate side. Most creators that are out there, if you were to ask them, to describe the algorithm, what goes viral, what doesn't go viral. Most of them couldn't actually tell you the answer to that. Most people that when they ask for YouTube advice, they're going and watching a podcast from Mr. Beast. They are going and calling their friend who's in the same community on Discord. And that person is likely experiencing the same challenges that person's experiencing. I started in the Call of Duty space specifically. And the Call of Duty space, has been notoriously, was once peak YouTube back in 2011, 2012. And today is certainly not what it used to be, to put it mildly. Every single time I go into the Discord channel that I've been in since basically the start, since I would say 2014, 2015, whenever Discord started, it's the same questions and conversations that continue to get brought up every single time. The one thing that's not present in the space today, besides a few, I would say a few small examples, is they don't have that one place that they can go to actually learn and understand all of these different things around the platforms, the algorithms, what thumbnails are good, what thumbnails aren't good, how to make content go viral today. It's very different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? And so what a lot of these companies that have tried to come in before and do is create one blanket solution. That here is the solution. We're going to take everything we learned from the traditional space and we're going to apply that to digital. Well, that doesn't work. And sure, you can help creators go to multi-platform, and that's fine. That's really an easy solution. Hey, your content's really successful on YouTube. Let me take that and bring it to Facebook. Oh, let me take that and bring it to Snapchat. Oh, let me take that. And that worked until it didn't, right? Snapchat decided, hey, we're going to go into a different solution now. We're going to open up the platform to tons of people and create a lot of competition. And those companies that, had a blanket solution to the problems ultimately failed as a result of having that blanket solution because they themselves didn't understand the algorithms. And they didn't have the 20, 21, 22-year-olds a part of the business in a senior level position that actually were trying to break the platforms every single day to figure out what the algorithms liked, didn't like, what thumbnails worked, what thumbnails didn't work, what editing style worked, what editing style didn't work. They didn't have those because they took a traditional model and applied that to digital, and it has failed every single time since the moment I've entered the space in 2011. And that's why pretty much every single company, they raised hundreds of millions of dollars. Well, where are they today? Most of them aren't here today for a lot of those reasons.
And you guys, so you feel like, so what I'm hearing from you is you feel like the solution is to have people that are like, it sounds like active creators in the space every day trying to sort of figure these algorithms out, because to your point, and I know this well, they change all the time every day. And then that is going to, be your sort of some part of your secret sauce. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it's part of it. Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely part of it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, Josh, go ahead.
Zach, Jason, great to have you here. Thanks so much for coming on. I think we hear a lot about in the ecosystem about how corporations are starting to have in-house creators to help them navigate different platforms and content distribution and content verticals and creation and more. It seems like you've just taken this as core to your company and kind of built it from the ground up that way. And I'm guessing it's that and this dichotomy between, I'm going to use some hyperboles here, Zach, this wizened old mage who's been in the ecosystem for a while, and Jason, this shiny new pup who's just entering the space, that like combination of having this faction that is deep in this ecosystem, understands it, grew up with it, and an adult in the room who knows how to operate a business is what was really attractive for Eldridge and Boehly and is your differentiating factor moving forward. Is that about right?
I mean, look, that's one way of looking at it. I think everyone's going to be attracted to, the older guy meets the younger guy. But I think, and I think that checks a particular box, right? But at the same time, when we met those guys and started spending time with those guys and educated those guys, because they're very, very educated. These are guys that will go 100 layers deep to try to understand the space. The difference was beyond what you just said, Josh, or in addition thereto, we took them 1,000 layers deep. And when they actually understood what the knowledge base was when they met some of the team members and understood the firepower that was living in our ecosystem and the traction that we were getting in the first year, right? Keep in mind, this is important, right? This isn't like, hey, we're raising on a deck. We met those guys a year in, right? When we already had a proof of working on a thesis, which was the content differentiation. I'll keep going back to that because that's the main thing. We took 6 months to get to know one another. This was not we had a dinner and they put a term sheet in front of us. We literally took 6 months to get to know one another. We probably had 20 meetings, 20 dinners, invited to each other to events. We took a trip overseas. We went to the Red Sea Film Festival in Saudi and spent an entire week together in meetings, seeing how we interacted. Right? Did we complement each other in these meetings? Our presence, our energy, our points of view. At that particular point, we looked at each other and said, let's do this. And thankfully for Jason and I, we had options because other people were also looking to get into the space. And that's how we chose those guys. We chose them just as much as they chose us, based on just this commitment to go build this next industry. And I'll tell you guys this, and I say this because I think this is really, really important. For me, if I was still in the music industry, if I went back to it today, the best thing that I could do right now personally is build a new business in an established industry. The thing that gets me up every single morning today is Jason and I are building a new industry through the cockpit of a new company. And that's the difference. We all, and by the way, you guys are also, fellow journeymen, we're all building a new industry. That's the most exciting thing about it. And for Eldridge, they really, really saw that this was the company that can build this new industry or lead it, because it doesn't exist at this point. So that's what I would say.
I dig it. I'm in like with the pitch. I think there is a generational gap between the legacy institutions here and what's actually happening in the ecosystem. And we see it all the time. Lauren and I do in conversations we have with everyone. And I think what you're honing in on is the kind of depth of that generational gap is far greater than anyone sees at surface level too. So I want to talk to you about, you've put some of that $50 million in capital to good use. You recently acquired Ellify. What was attractive about them?
First and foremost, they are cut from the same cloth we are. They deeply care about creators. A lot of them were creators in their own right before. So much of our team has worked with them in the past as well at past companies. And so there was so much synergies from that standpoint. And, for us, any person, any group that we want to join the company, first and foremost, they have to care about creators. They have to actually want to see creators win at the highest level. And Ellify is literally the epitome of that. I mean, they care so much. And that was, I think, one of the biggest, immediate differences between them and basically everybody else is just how much they cared about, how much they understood about creators. They themselves have had, a content wing to their business as well, helping a lot of their talent with their content as well. Because again, a lot of them were former creators, former Twitch streamers, a lot of them were gamers. And so, that really appealed to us, and it made it a very, very, synergistic and I think just no brainer for both sides.
And so you get as part of the deal, they have their talent roster that comes on board, their team comes on board. They have a influencer marketing agency arm of Ellify that comes on board that you'll be managing too?
Correct. Yeah. The goal with any one of these, and to your guys' question earlier about what are we planning on doing with the money, in short, we're looking to assemble the Avengers of the space. What does that look like? That looks like people that have formed companies and have had successful companies, as Ellify and some of the others we're going to be announcing. It's some of the best talent managers, right, and agents who want to be in the space. It's the best creators, and probably just importantly, if maybe even more, the best content people, right? Because that is ultimately what the difference is.
And when you say, because I'm pushing back just because we've been in this rodeo before. I've heard the Avengers analogy. I've been made decks with that analogy before. What does that mean in terms of their like you say you're not a management company, but are you like, what is their buy-in? Like, are you giving them a piece of the company to form this sort of like superhero league, or are you repping them and taking a percentage? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, anytime we bring somebody in to work with the company as part of the company, whether it's an Ellify or whether it's a content expert, everybody that works at the company is somebody that has a piece of the company. We are a company. We are a company that gives equity to people that come and stay. So that's number one. As far as the creators, what they get is just completely unparalleled, unmatched value in a way that they just have never gotten before. Just a real career architect on the representation end, and just a powerhouse of a content team on the content end.
Yeah, and just an example of that, when we go and talk to a creator to be a part of our 360 management part of the business, the conversation from day one is not, you know, hey, what's your favorite brands? What's your rate card? What brand deal did you do in the last 30 days? Hey, how much in deals did you do last year? It's, hey, talk to me about your ambitions. Where do you want to go 5 years from now? Tell me about your content. What's your team structured? What's your operations look like? These are not questions that anyone else asks. And so immediately when you have a conversation with the creator, it immediately cuts through the noise of
Pushing
everyone
back at that
else.
entirely, Jason. I've been asking that. I started creator partnerships in Facebook in 2014. It's the first question I asked everybody. Not true. You might do it better than anybody, but not the first person that's asked it. So I guess I'm pushing back because I want to understand. I want you guys to succeed, and I want to understand how you're going to take that information and make these lives
Well,
better
look,
for creators.
I think there's a difference between Facebook and a management company, right? If we were a platform and asking those questions, I think that's entirely different. What I'm describing here is other management companies and agencies. Every management company agency, I know them all. I've known these people for, 5+ years, 10+ years in some cases. I know the questions they asked every single time. I hear from creators. Why do so many creators every year jump from one management company to another? It's not because, oh, they're talking to me about my content. Oh, they're helping me build a team. Oh, they're helping me with operations. It's because they're asking the same questions, and their friend at a different management company who's doing the same type of content they're doing, in their words, is getting more brand deals than me. So I'm just going to go over there because they're getting more brand deals than me. So yeah, I think if I was Facebook, I'm sure, and I've sat in front of tons of platforms before as well. Totally. They ask those questions. But what I'm referring to is the other people in the space that are essentially our competitors.
I love it. Well, this
Or,
is
in the past, MCNs and those type of
yeah, of
companies. I mean,
course.
I just can't see how it can be a breath of fresh air if I am a creator and I have been talking to multiple individuals at different companies. If I can talk to someone about brand deals and operational infrastructure and what can increase my click-through rates on my thumbnails, that could be interesting. Someone or some org that gets all of those. I get
Yeah,
it.
and by the way, let me be clear, because we talked about content a lot. We are talking about a team full time that helps with everything from creative ideation, filming, editing for every single platform, thumbnails, every single part of the value chain from beginning to end, strategy, continuing to figure out how to ride the algorithms correctly. It's literally all of it, moment to moment, second by second. This isn't a, and by the way, not to say the strategy is not important. It's critical to what we do. It's actually step one, figuring out the strategy. But it's everything from strategy to creative ideation to execution for the clients across platforms.
I love it. One last question to end on. Jason, I think it's a fascinating journey always when a creator goes from essentially being a creator to in sort of the business, call it the corporate world, whatever you want to call it. And just for funsies, I'd love to hear just like one little snippet about that transition for you, because we talk to a lot of creators that like want to sort of jump into a more, call it traditional work environment, and they find that really difficult. So I just like any advice, any thoughts to creators that are thinking about that. They're a little burnt out from pumping out content and they want to go maybe work for you or something, like, work at a more traditional, get some benefits for now, all that stuff.
So I was lucky that when I first started, I was really interested in business basically from day one. And, what I was also doing at the same time is I was buying and selling collectibles around the country. And so I naturally learned, how to, buy and sell and negotiate. And I was always dealing with people that were much older than me. And so, I was a little different in that case than I think most creators, where it's, hey, I create content, like that's all I do every single day. And, the biggest piece of advice that I would give a lot of people is, number one, really, really make sure you actually want to do it. because I think it sometimes the grass looks greener on the other side. And if you do really want to do it, find a group of people that you can really align with, that you can learn from, and really go all in. Because I think that, so many people, they try to do multiple things at the same time, and they try to wear, 50 different hats at the same time. And if you really want to be ultra successful, I think going from, being a creator to, being, more behind the scenes, in the business side, I think you really have to go all in, just be obsessed with it. I think that's probably one word that most people would, say about me is I'm very obsessed on everything that I do. I go a million layers deep. And I think that every creator that wants to make that transition should do the same thing, and then really just surround themselves with great people that they can, look up to, learn from, and collaborate with.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
And if people want to get in touch and learn more, where can they find you?
I mean, for me, Instagram, Twitter, @General, or X now, @General.
Yep. And for me, the Zach Katz on IG or LinkedIn, Zach Katz.
And at Fixated. Thank you guys so much. This was great.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, so much for coming on. Thanks for letting me sort of dig in. I actually think what they're offering, should it be successful, is absolutely of tremendous value. I think the idea that a management company could actually dig into the content, I think he's not wrong. I think management companies really haven't, because I think there's been a thought that like we're not allowed to touch that, the creator knows sort of best. And I think to an extent that is true, but I think the truth is creators need help and want help with the algorithms. And there's so many platforms, and like, how can you help me succeed on each of them is a really huge value proposition if they can figure it out.
Yeah, agreed. I think people have tried to do this in the past, adding on content arms to multi-channel networks, for instance. But I think the industry was too nascent, and the people maybe that were in those positions weren't coming from being a creator themselves and understanding all the idiosyncrasies of what that means.
Yeah, and I just think that certain things are just a little bit ahead of their time. And like, it's an understanding, not necessarily, I think people have been trying to solve for this. I think there's companies that have been trying to solve for this, some of which I've been a part of. And so I don't think that hasn't happened. I don't think there hasn't been any success, but I think what ends up happening a lot of times is things become, for lack of a better word, very corporate. When you become more corporate, it's hard to move and change and really get into the weeds. And I think that what he was saying, what he clearly is bringing to the table in a lot of ways, is that creator, young, very in the know perspective that hopefully can inform their whole strategy. So I don't know. I'm excited to see what happens. All right, Josh, let's get to some uploads and downloads. So Neil Moham came out with his What's Coming in YouTube sort of letter to creators. A couple of highlights here. He does, of course, talk about AI, talks about how they're really trying, it was interesting. He talks about ASMR and how it was like once this really weird thing and now it's completely mainstream. And so they recognize that like things that sound like really weird can ultimately become just totally commonplace, but at the same time, they're very cognizant of AI slop. I mean, the fact that he uses the term AI slop in his letter, I think is like going to make it, was it the official word of the year last year? Unclear, but I think it will be this year because like a big CEO is putting it in his like letter. But they're really trying to do all the things. So they're, he said it's becoming harder to detect what's real and what's AI generated. That's particularly critical when it comes to deep fakes. We clearly label content created by YouTube AI products, and creators must disclose when they've created realistic, altered, or synthetic content. I mean, that's the problem, though. Creators are meant to disclose themselves, and I think some will and I think some won't. He said because labels aren't always enough, we remove any harmful synthetic media that violates our community guidelines. We're also building a foundation of content ID, a system our partners have trusted for a decade, blah, 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 to equip creators with new tools to manage the use of their likeness in AI generated content. I mean, this is the arms race, man. This is like how are we going to battle this? I think, Adam Asori did that letter or post, I don't know what it was, like a couple of weeks ago, talking about instead of trying to label AI content, it seems like their philosophy is going to be a bit more that they're going to try to label what is not AI content, which I think is, and then it's going to maybe be a flex to see things that are really sloppy and clearly not. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens. But a couple other highlights, he's talking a lot about, what we were just talking about with Netflix. YouTube has become #1 in streaming watch time in the US for nearly a decade. And according to Nielsen, YouTube is the new TV because creators are the new prime time. And how some creators have gotten Emmy Awards and things like that. So exciting stuff from Neil Moham.
Lauren, just 2 quick uploads for me. One, going back to Netflix, they just inked a deal with Alan Chicken Chow in hopes that he can deliver Netflix's next K-pop hit. So for those who don't know, Alan Chicken Chow is an incredibly successful, mainly short-form creator on YouTube with tens of millions of subscribers who gets tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of views on his videos. He also has produced this long-form series, Alan's Universe, for the last several years. So he's a creator, one of the rare ones, that is producing both short form and long form and getting tens of millions of views on both of those different types of formats. So he inked this deal with Hybe America. Famously, Hybe is the multinational media conglomerate that birthed BTS, the incredibly successful K-pop sensation. And he did a deal with them, and together they're going to produce this K-pop show, which Netflix just licensed. And it's going to be a kind of like new, I don't want to say Mickey Mouse Club, but those kind of vibes where the people in the show are going to release real music as the show is being produced and cut together and distributed, which I think could be amazing.
Yeah.
This is also the first time that Netflix has worked with a YouTuber on a narrative storytelling format. I mean, they've done a lot with live. It's the first time they've done it since, I think, Miranda Sings back in like 2017, 2018, when they had their scripted series with her. But this is the first like non-live event and non just straight up licensed product that they've had with the YouTuber, I think, really since then.
Well, speaking of which, also they just inked a deal with Alex Earl. She's going to do a reality show. I'm surprised it took this long. I'm telling you, Dancing with the Stars can catapult anyone.
Oh yeah, that's true. Charlie D'Amelio, same trajectory.
I mean, I'm just telling. Well, Charlie, I don't know if I think she had a reality show before, but she did go to Broadway after Dancing with the Stars. So
there you go.
There's that.
Lauren, and then real quick, YouTube also just refreshed its brand identity. If you didn't know this, don't worry. It's subtle. They apparently have a new shade of red. And also a little bit of the logo is different. For instance, the dot on the I is around like 17, 18% smaller. I'm fascinated by this. For those on the YouTube PR team that are listening, would love to talk to someone who was involved in making these decisions. I think it'd be an incredible interview. For real.
All right, Josh, I think we did it.
Lauren, I think that's it. I'll see you filling out online profiles, just saying you are Cattle Ranch curious.
I'm super Cattle Ranch curious, officially.
And if not there, next week on Creator Upload. Today's show was produced by Lauren Schnipper, Joshua Cohen, that's me, and Adam Connor. It's edited by Adam Connor too. Original music is by London Bridge. You can check him out on Instagram at London Bridge Music. Make sure you subscribe to Creator Upload right here on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts as well, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. While you're there, give us a rating and leave us a comment. If you want to talk, hit us up at info@creatorupload.com. If you like our show, recommend it to a friend. If you love it, just tell everyone. Thanks for listening to Creator Upload, and we will be back next week.